Australia's labour force numbers for the month of December are scheduled to be released by the Bureau of Statistics tomorrow. The unemployment rate is expected to remain stable at 3.9%. Joining me now is Ben Picton, Senior Macro Strategist at Rabobank. Ben, thanks for your time. What are your expectations tomorrow for the unemployment rate?
Yeah, well, we're broadly in line with market consensus here. We're looking for a figure of about 15,000 new jobs added in the month of December, and we think that the unemployment rate probably will remain at 3.9%. The really interesting thing from my perspective is going to be what happens with the participation rate, because we've seen that at record highs recently, and the RBA has been talking about the way that people have adjusted to higher cost of living and interest rates is by working more. So it'll be interesting to see if that changes.
And how quickly could we see the unemployment rate rise throughout this year?
We think it'll be quite slow. We think that the labour market will still remain reasonably resilient. We do think that what's going to start to happen is that the labour force will start to grow faster than what employment has been growing. So we'll gradually see that unemployment rate tick up throughout the year. We think that it's going to finish 2024 somewhere around about 4.1%.
RBA, they meet next month. What are your expectations? I know today NAB have tweaked their own rate forecast. They were expecting the cash rate to rise next month. Now they're predicting a hold. What's your tip at Rabo?
They have, yeah. So we actually have the same forecast as NAB. We issued our forecast a while ago now, but we're expecting no rate rise in February. And we think that there'll be a rate cut that arrives in November of this year.
Right, so November. There's some speculation it could be August, but you're going a bit further out.
Yeah, we think that the RBA will wait a little bit longer. We think that the market is generally getting a bit too excited about rate hikes. Rate cuts, sorry. That's certainly the case in the United States, where we're seeing 6 cuts already priced in. Here in Australia, we've got 2 cuts priced in for 2024, but we think that they'll take a bit longer than that.
Yeah, retail sales numbers, though, for November, they came out recently. They were a bit stronger than what the market thought. Does that put a little pressure on the RBA there to potentially think about raising rates?
Well, you could certainly read it that way, but I don't think so, because the ABS has been pretty clear that they think that the Black Friday sales, which fall in November, is changing consumer behaviour. We actually saw a negative print for retail turnover in October. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a pretty soft number for December as well when those figures come out, because we think that what's happening is people are becoming more price sensitive, and they're pulling all of their consumption into those discounting periods that fall in November.
Well, we get the quarterly CPI at the end of the month, just a few days before the RBA have their first board meeting. But you look at the global situation right now with shipping. You've got Houthi rebels in the Red Sea causing some issues with oil, the oil markets, industrial action at our container ship ports as well. Do these things add to inflation and add to costs for consumers?
Yeah, they absolutely do. And we saw that during COVID. So the genesis of the inflation problem was offshore supply chain problems. So we do know that these sorts of supply side issues, they can create inflation problems, particularly for goods. And it's worth remembering that a lot of the disinflation, most of the disinflation that we've been seeing recently, all comes from goods. Mm-hmm. So we have seen this reduction in inflation, but some of that might be ancient history if we start to see higher goods price inflation from these disruptions to shipping and these issues at the ports.
Now, the day that consumer price numbers come out, the US Federal Reserve will make its first cash rate decision of the year for the funds rate. Inflation there's bounced around a bit, but where are you expecting the US Fed to go with rates?
We don't think they'll do anything at all at that meeting.
Yep.
We are expecting some cuts from the Fed later in the year, but not until sort of mid-year. The market is pricing in the first cut from March, but we do think that that's way too optimistic.
And we'll hear from Jerome Powell at his press conference, and then a week later we'll actually get to hear from Michelle Bullock for the first time hosting a press conference after a cash rate call as well.
Yeah, so some changes here in Australia in the way that the RBA does things with monetary policy decisions this year. It's going to be really interesting to see what Michelle Bullock has to say at those press conferences. The RBA certainly has a focus on improving communication throughout the year. I do wonder if it might be a little bit of a case of, it's better to leave some things unsaid and leave the market guessing. Sometimes too much communication, you can tie yourself in knots.
Ben Picton from Rabobank, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Ed.